Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here, Doctor Who fans. Of course, I love you all, even the ones who hate me and don't agree with what I've got to say. We are one part of one big happy, well, not so much happy, but we're part of a family. And people in a family don't always love each other. But one of my sources has reported to me the truth about why Olivia Coleman rejected Chris Chibnall's advances to become the 13th Doctor. Now, first of all, I don't know if any of this is true. The source has given this to me. There's been a lot of whisperings and mumblings throughout the industry about this situation. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what's been said to me. I'm not telling you it's true. I'm just telling you what I've been told. So it's a bit of a scoop from me, right? So Chris Chibnall, when he was appointed the new showrunner of Doctor Who, decided no one else would do but Olivia Coleman. He wanted a female doctor. It's something he had to kind of go to and from with the BBC about. They weren't particularly comfortable about that situation, but they agreed when he sold it to them as maybe to make a political statement that a female doctor could work. And why shouldn't a female play the doctor? So he approached Olivia Coleman, who wasn't sure if she wanted the gig. But as soon as he kind of described that this would be kind of a political statement, she didn't want to be. First of all, she was worried about being the first female doctor, and she certainly didn't start wanting to make feminist statements and having to do the kind of stuff that Jodie Whittaker's had to do publicly in terms of marketing this version of the Doctor. So what happened was she was making her mind up for a long time. Ultimately, she said no, not because she didn't want to play the Doctor, not because she didn't want to be in Doctor Who. She's been in Doctor Who already under the Stephen Moffat era. In fact, in Stephen Moffat's very first season 5 episode, she was involved. So she's not ashamed of the franchise. So she was just very concerned about the direction that Chris Chibnall wanted to go. And that's why she didn't want to do it. Olivia Coleman, Liv would have made a great doctor. Maybe one of the best doctors if done properly, right? Under another showrunner, she could really work. But ultimately, Jodie Whittaker could have been a great doctor under another showrunner. But he's left the creativity and the entertainment out of the door. He has sucked all the fun out of Doctor Who. And clearly, if what my source is telling me is true, Olivia Coleman could see that as well. Now, this comes off the back of Olivia Coleman winning a Golden Globe Award. She's a very, very talented lady, and no one can question that. She would have been fantastic as the Doctor under the right person, under the right premise, and she could see it. What we can now see, that Chris Chibnall is just not capable of executing a great, awesome, fun season of Doctor Who. And this is what I've been told, and this is why she rejected his advances. The problem was he waited so long for her to make her mind up. By the time she did make her mind up, he was in big trouble because he hadn't thought of anyone else because he thought he could convince her to take on the role under his direction. He didn't think about anyone else playing the part, so he was in trouble. He was being pressured by the BBC to come up with someone. So he literally had to go back to Jodie Whittaker and say, well, how about you playing the Doctor? We know the conversation we had where she said, maybe I can play a villain. And he goes, how do you feel about playing the Doctor? He had nowhere else to go, so he went to her. She's not really a prominent actor. She's not one of these people where people go, oh, Jodie Whittaker, let's pay her $100 million because, she's really important. She puts butts in seats. She's never had a proper lead role in TV or film before. Now, that doesn't mean she couldn't be a great doctor and she shouldn't have been cast. But the reality is she doesn't have the aura. So if she had the aura and personality, maybe Chris Chibnall's direction, maybe Chris Chibnall could have got away with what he was trying to do. But because she didn't even have that, she needed a strong head writer to make her a great doctor. And this writer just hasn't got the tools. But it's not just about not having the tools. He clearly is a good writer. We've seen that in Broadchurch, right? The point is, he was unwilling to make Doctor Who fun and make Doctor Who what it should be. Now, you can throw at me that Doctor Who is about change. That's an excuse that we had throughout the Moffat era, where he was changing things too much constantly. And if you change things too much, even in a show that's about change, people get dizzy and they don't know where they are. But on the other hand, that's one of the reasons they change the Doctor every 3 years, because if you get too used to that actor and you like that actor, then when you bring someone else in, it takes so much getting used to. So it's a balancing act, but his take on this show just doesn't work. And Olivia Colman could see that. I'm gutted. I'm gutted that she didn't do the role, but I'm happy for her because she could have damaged her career. How could she have damaged her career? Well, we've seen what's happened with Jodie Whittaker. The statement she's making on behalf of the BBC and this show and Chris Chibnall, she's making very political statements that will damage her in the future. I mean, as I say, she wasn't a prominent actor anyway. They weren't all lining up. She would have had a few offers because of Broadchurch. But this was a massive offer, which of course she couldn't say no to. And I totally understand why she accepted it. But I think if she looks back now and all the hassle she probably gets, and she's not on social media, luckily, but these people have always got secret accounts. So all those kind of accounts with not many followers could all be famous actors. You just don't know. So never think because someone's not officially on social media that they're not actually on social media. And always be wary of that when you talk about them, unless you don't care. I don't care. I say what I want. So what does this mean for Chris Chibnall? That he went for her, she rejected him ultimately, but he did not have a plan B. So it's like in the end, oh, I can't have her. Female doctor. Jodie Whittaker, she'll just say yes. And this is the situation. He went to someone so desperate to have a prominent career that she couldn't say no. She couldn't really be involved with the direction he wanted to go in. So she's all happy. She's talking about being a feminist. And already it's troublesome before it kicks off. You have her reading mean tweets, her fans talking about sexists who don't want her to be the doctor. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. And the situation is inflamed even before we see the first episode. So we get the first episode, which is okay, which is passable. It's a good introduction to the new Doctor. But then slowly but surely the show goes too political, too much gender politics, and everyone's getting triggered, and it's a poison chalice already. As I said before, Chibnall will announce that he's leaving, and no doubt Whittaker will make the same announcement, that season 12 will be their final season and there'll be 6 episodes. As far as I've heard, that hasn't changed. Season 12 is their final season and it's going to be 6 episodes. But you can comment down below and let me know what you think of all of this, whether you believe it. As I say, I don't know if it's true, but we do know one thing. He approached her. She hasn't denied it. He hasn't denied it. We just don't know the reasons she said no. Could she have had the offers that she's working on now and she decided that they were more interesting for her career? Maybe. I mean, there's also a story from David Tennant when they were working together on Broadchurch where these people were approaching him on the beach for autographs, Doctor Who fans, and she was getting a bit overprotective. And David was saying, no, it's okay. I'm happy to do it. So maybe she didn't want all that. She knows it can be a bit poisonous where we're not the most accepting of fans. I will admit that myself. And maybe she just didn't want to deal with it. And I think she knew the problematic situation of being the first female Doctor. But, as I say, under the right head writer, a female Doctor isn't actually a problem. It's not something I wanted, that I used to have a wet dream about. But at the end of the day, when I heard Whittaker was doing it and Chibnall was running the show, I felt maybe because they worked together, they could give us something quite special. But that's not what they wanted. They just wanted to bring in the politics and literally be horrible about men, calling them bad fathers, calling dads complicated, and nonsense like that. And it goes on and on and on. So it's funny, actually, because I was on Twitter yesterday and one of these guys who doesn't particularly like season 11 or Whittaker as the Doctor asked a question. He's quite popular. So he asked us a question. He said, what happens now that Doctor Who is a failure? So someone else comes on and says, well, no, it's not a failure just because you don't like it. So he brings Aquaman into it and he goes, well, I didn't like Aquaman, surprise, surprise. but I can't call it a failure just because I didn't like it. No, in ratings terms, Doctor Who isn't a failure. It's got solid ratings, even though the ratings have been on a downturn ever since episode 2 of this series, and they've just dropped and dropped and dropped. But that's fine. The amount of number of people coming in, you can't call it in numbers a disaster. But as I've said a billion times before, what you can call a disaster is the poor merchandise sales, the low pre-orders on the box set for season 11. This is where it hurts. There is no rewatchability about it, and this is where it is a failure. And when I said it to this guy, surprise, surprise, he didn't reply, because they just want to come back about ratings, because it's the only argument that holds water, because the rest of it doesn't. Because if you talk about, you see, this is what I mean about this generation now. All they want to talk about is ratings and box office. They never talk about the actual content. And the content we got for Doctor Who season 11 wasn't entertaining. There was no fun to it. There was no excitement. We were just watching because it was Doctor Who, and that's it. It was boring. It was uninteresting, and it was so mundane. It was difficult to keep faith with this show. I've lost my faith with it now. Under Chibnall, I don't expect very much when the show comes back, but I do expect it to be their final season, because the BBC know they can't keep on going down this direction, and they can't make Chris Chibnall Russell T Davies. They can't even make him Stephen Moffat. Now, people have talked about this show looking beautiful and the cameras and blah, blah, blah. Personally, I preferred how Moffat's Doctor Who looked. I think visually, Moffat's Doctor Who looked beautiful. It was the fantasy element. It was like we were in a dream. We were on an adventure. It was like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. That's the kind of Doctor Who that Stephen Moffat did. So there were elements of Moffat's era I didn't like, but I will say one thing for him. He did give us a good look. So it's not just about having the tools. It's like something else now. A lot of YouTubers now, when you watch their videos, it's like watching TV or the news. They've got these great kind of, they do these great graphics, the editing, everything. They've got music over them. They've got pictures of different things, whatever they're talking about. It looks very swish and neat. But what I loved about YouTube when people first started doing videos, and this is just an example to compare to Doctor Who, is it actually looked like real people were sitting in their bedrooms, sitting in their houses, just being passionate and talking about what they wanted to talk about, like I'm doing here. And I prefer those type of channels rather than someone having all the garnish but not having anything beneath that. And a lot of people are fooled by the garnish. And that's why a lot of these YouTubers are very successful. And it's the same as Doctor Who. You can have the best cameras, the best HD, the best 4K. I don't care. If your product isn't interesting to me, you may as well have shot it in black and white, because none of that really matters. It's about the storytelling, the performances, the music. People talk about Sagon Akinola, and Sagon Akinola's music is passable, but it's more mood music than anything else. You know, Murray Gold will never be beaten for me in terms of music on Doctor Who. In fact, he's one of the top composers I've ever heard. He's a sensory delight. The bombastic music was beautiful. So we've lost all of that. You know, Chibnall sacked a hell of a lot of people. The people he replaced them with were nowhere near as talented as the people he got rid of. So please share the video, like the video, share the channel if you're liking what I'm doing. And yeah, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this reveal, if it's true that actually Olivia Coleman rejected Chris Chibnall's kind of concept of what her Doctor would be, rather than rejecting Doctor Who. For me, it's very interesting, but it doesn't surprise me.